Hey guys, today we're gonna go over my September TBR. This TBR is very ambitious. I'm also gonna be quite busy in September, so we'll see if I get to all of these. Fingers crossed, but these are all the books I hope to get to at least. I'm gonna start out with some arcs. I have 3 this month that publish in September, so I'm going to try to get to those and review them before they come out. The first one is Signal to Noise by Sylvia Moreno Garcia. This is one of her backlist books that's been republished by her new publisher. I don't know a lot about this other than there's like a musical element to it. The cover's really cool. I like the vibrant pink and blues. In NetGalley, the little blurb says Mexico City, 1988, long before iTunes or MP3s, you said I love you with a mixtape. Our main character is 15 years old, discovers how to cast spells using magic, and with her friends, they will piece together their broken families and even find love. Then it seems like we have a time jump to 2 decades later. Our main character returns to Mexico City and revives memories from her childhood. So I like the idea of music having some sort of inherent magic to it. I think that's a lot of fun. I've said it before, I'll say it a million times more. I will read literally anything that Sylvia Moreno Garcia puts out. I love her writing, and her stories are always so magical and vivid and lush, and I can't wait to read this one. I was really excited to get approved for this arc. I think it's the first Sylvia Moreno Garcia arc that I've been approved for, so getting there. Next, I have an audio arc for The Ballad of Never After by Stephanie Garber. This is the sequel to Once Upon a Broken Heart that came out, was it earlier this year or late last year? I don't remember. Loved that book. It's sort of an extension of the Caraval series, and I thought the first one was so whimsical and fun, and also had some really unexpected twists to it. I really love the world that this book is set in, and I can't wait to read the sequel. The last one left off on quite the cliffhanger. I'm really excited I got an arc for this one as well. This was a really big release that I was not expecting to get approved for, but I have noticed audiobook arcs, I feel like you have a higher approval rating, or you have a higher approval likelihood with those, so I definitely gotta carve out some time to listen to that this month. The last arc I have this month is When We Were Friends by Holly Bourne. I've never read this author before, but the premise sounded really interesting to me. This seems to be more literary fiction rather than sci-fi fantasy, which I do like to kind of throw into the mix sometimes. Sometimes, I need a little refresher, break from sci-fi and fantasy. So I was like, okay, this sounds interesting. And I like that it seems to explore friendship over decades worth of time. The blurb for this one says, in this darkly funny novel, 2 women reunite after a decade of estrangement, only to confront the forces that destroyed their friendship in the first place. So I'm hoping this is a relationship study. I love reading about different types of friendship dynamics. Very curious to see what tore these 2 girls apart and what brings them back together. I like the idea that it's darkly funny, so we'll see how that goes, and fingers crossed I like that one. So yeah, those are the arcs that I'm hoping to get to this month. Falling a bit behind again on NetGalley, but it is what it is. There's just so many books that I want to read. It's hard to kind of divvy up time to address all the different sort of sources that I'm receiving books from. I got really behind on my library holds and stuff too, so that's a whole other story. Now let's dive into the books that I physically own and am planning to read this month. There's a lot of dark academia, witchy fall vibes coming in. September is kind of when I start getting in the mood for those comforty fall spooky reads. I know it's a little early, we still have a couple weeks left of summer, but again, this is a transition time, and I want to be able to have some recommendations prepared for October as well. There's probably a couple more spooky books in here than I normally read in September, but I'm very excited to get to all of these. First up, we have 10,000 Stitches by Olivia Atwater. This is the sequel to Half a Soul that I read this previous month, and it was so cozy and fun, and it was exactly what I needed at the time. It was like a magical Regency romance. I think the series is actually called, Regency Fairy Tales, and the way that Olivia Atwater writes fae is my favorite. They are dark, they are mischievous, they appear human, but there's just something uncanny about them, and I just think that's so fun. In this one, it's like a sequel to the first one, but it's also a standalone, technically. It doesn't follow the same characters that we had in the first one. In this one, we follow Effie, who is a maid who's fallen in love with a gentleman, and especially in the Regency era, that was not appropriate. She sort of appeals to a Fey Lord named Lord Blackthorn, and he agrees to help her. He's very eager to help her, actually, and all he asks in return is that Effie sew 10,000 stitches into his favorite jacket. Magical bargains are a little tricksy in this world, though, and she's willing to risk it even for her immortal soul for the chance at something better. And now she has 100 days and 10,000 stitches to make her love fall in love and propose, if Lord Blackthorn doesn't wreck things by accident, that is. This kind of gives me like Cinderella vibes, except if the godmother were a Fey Lord and everything that he does to try to help actually makes things worse. I'm very excited to read this. I love her style of writing. It's just very fun and charming, and even if there's like dark or serious matters at hand, it's still like very engaging. So I'm so excited to read this. The first one made me so happy, and I hope the feelings continue with this one. I did not realize, actually, until just now that I had 2 Sylvia Moreno Garcia books on my TBR for this month, but we also have Certain Dark Things. This was another Backlist book that was published by her new publisher. I think it's Tor Nightfire. I love the cover for this, for one, and all I know is that it's like Mexico City vampires, I think the 80s, maybe? Maybe I'm mixing that up with Signal to Noise, actually, but it is like vampires in Mexico City, and that sounds really cool to me. Again, I love the vibes of this cover. I don't know much about it other than that like a human boy befriends a vampire, and yeah, that's all I need to know. I'm very intrigued, and I love Sylvia Moreno Garcia. I'm trying to get through her whole backlist. It's hard to catch up because I feel like she's been very productive the last few years, so trying my best to in fact catch up. Another backlist book by one of my current faves is Middle Game by Shawnee McGuire. I feel like this kind of took the booktube world by storm when it came out. I believe it was late 2020. I picked this up used sometime last year, and I've been wanting to read it ever since. I think I got a little distracted by the approachability of the Wayward Children series, where just those are quick, snappy little novellas. I'm more willing to pick those up first, even though I love Shawnee McGuire's writing. But I am very excited to see what this one is all about, especially that now that the sequel, I think it's Seasonal Fears, is out as well. I haven't heard a whole lot about that one, actually, so I don't know if it's good, but I do like Shawnee McGuire's writing. Sort of similar to Olivia Atwater, like, she has this very whimsical, dark thing happening in her narrative, and it's just so intriguing. I love the worlds that she's set up. This will be my first non-Wayward Children series read that I'll have picked up by her. It's just giving me fall vibes. It has to do with alchemy. There are these 2 children who were created by like an alchemist, Roger and Dodger. Roger is skilled with words, Dodger is skilled with math, and they're sort of created to be gods in this world, but I don't think things go as intended, so very curious to read this. There's also like a novella spin-off series for this one. I think it's called Over the Woodward Wall, or at least the first one is, by A. Deborah Baker, which is a story that is mentioned in this book specifically. There's just so much to catch up on with Shawnee McGuire, but this is a priority for this month for sure. Then next up on my Goodreads backlist project, where I'm going to like my oldest books on my want to read list, I have The Book of Essie by Megan McLean Weir. I picked this up for 50 cents, as you can see, like sometime last year. I don't totally remember what it's about, other than that I think it kind of reminded me of the Duggar family. So this book tells the story of a 17-year-old daughter of an evangelical preacher, star of the family's hit reality show, and the secret pregnancy that threatens to blow her entire world apart. So I don't want to read too much more into it than that, because that already sounds really interesting to me. Again, kind of a not sci-fi fantasy read, which is atypical for me, but I do like a good contemporary drama every now and then, and this seems relevant for our time especially, so I'm looking forward to this one, and I'm looking forward to finally getting it off my backlist, and hopefully it's good. I believe this was on a TBR of mine a couple months ago. I grabbed it from the library. My library hold ran out. I found this used for like $4, so I was like, why not? I picked up The Year of the Witching by Alexis Henderson. I actually won an ebook version from Goodreads. The only Goodreads giveaway I've ever won was for an ebook version of this book. So I have a little bit of flexibility when it comes to how I want to read it, but this book gives me like Salem witch trial vibes, which I think will be a great read to pick up kind of maybe towards the end of the month. The blurb says, a young woman living in a rigid puritanical society discovers dark powers within herself in the stunning feminist fantasy debut. There's also the added tension that she is, I believe, half black, and in this very conservative, society, like that's just another thing against her. So I'm really excited to read this. Alexis Henderson has another book coming out, I think in early October or late September, called House of Hunger, which is about vampires. So I figure I should read her Backlist book first, but I'm very excited to get into this, and I think it'll be the perfect creepy read to start off the fall. Speaking of perfect creepy reads, we have The Book Eaters by Suni Dean. This is a really recent release, and I'm so excited to get to it. I've heard amazing things. I feel like it's kind of been making waves on like TikTok and stuff. I just think this sounds so cool. The premise of the story is that sort of in the moors, isolated from society, we have this group of people known as book eaters, and they literally consume books. Different genres have different flavors, and I believe they consume the knowledge of these books as they literally eat them. Also within this society, there are mind eaters, and these are sort of aberrations in the gene pool, but they're weaponized by the families to get women especially to do what sort of the heads of the family want. Our main character gives birth to a mind eater, and while she loves him, she's also horrified at what she has to do to keep him alive. And they go on the run because she doesn't want her son to be, used by the rest of her family. And they leave a string of bodies behind them. And this just sounds horrifying and sad, but so good. I don't know. It's got gothic vibes for sure. I've heard this has horror elements, obviously, with the mind eater thing. This kid literally has to eat brains to stay alive. I don't know where this story could go, but it's probably not a happy place. But I'm very intrigued, and I've heard great things, so I definitely want to pick this up. I have a lot of books with the word book in the title this month. Next up, we have The Book of Night by Holly Black. This came out a few months ago to not super well received reviews, but I'm a Holly Black stan, so I figure I still have to check it out for myself. This is the Fairy Loot edition that I got in the adult subscription box a few months back. I don't know a lot about this beyond that shadow magic is a thing. Like, humanity has learned how to utilize their shadows, or like use magic through their shadows or something. And our main character, I believe, is like a con artist, but like she's trying to be better. I'm not quite sure. I have heard it's very slow and doesn't pick up until the end, which kind of like leads into the potential sequel, I suppose. I feel like my expectations have been a bit tempered for this one, so hopefully I won't be too disappointed. I am very intrigued to see what Holly Black's adult debut looks and feels like, though. I'm intrigued still, so hopefully I don't hate it. We shall see, but the vibes seem right for the fall, and I figured if not now, then when. Next up, I have a couple dark academia books that I want to try to get to this month. The first being The Atlas 6 by Olive Blake. This is also the Fairy Loot edition with the sprayed edges and such. I believe the Atlas Paradox, the sequel, comes out soon, like in the next couple of months, because this book was self-published initially, so she's had a little bit more time to write than, if she had only just really come out with this first book as recently as it was traditionally published. This book is like a magical competition with 6 extraordinary magicians trying to earn a spot in a secret society known as the Alexandrian Society. I believe we follow all 6 of these points of views, which can sometimes be a little disorienting, but I do like a multi-POV story. I don't know if I've read it in like a dark academia setting before. It's more like typical of high fantasy, but that should be interesting. But yeah, so there's only 5 spots available, and basically one of these people is gonna die. And I don't know much about it beyond that. The end papers have really beautiful artwork. Wow. This sounds interesting. If you haven't heard about this book, it did in fact blow up on TikTok when the self-published version was out. I feel like a year ago now, something like that. So I've been intrigued for a while. I just haven't had the time to get around to it. And I figure September was a good time. We have like kind of back to school season, which gives into the academia vibes. And it just seems like a good time to pick it up. So hopefully I buy the hype. I've seen kind of split reviews on it, but I want to love this book. So hopefully it goes well. And then a slightly older release, but a book that has a sequel coming out rather soon as well, is Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. I know this also has to do with secret societies, but more in like a college campus setting, and I believe our main character's name is Galaxy, but she goes by Alex. I only remember that because my name is Alexandra, and I thought that was a very strange shortening. But I see it works, I guess. Whatever. I've heard mixed things about this as well. I've only read Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo so far, so while I do still need to read Crooked Kingdom by her, I do also want to see what she has available kind of outside of her Grishaverse setting, and this is also an adult novel, unlike her Grishaverse books, so I think it should be fun. I'm excited. The sequel, Hellbent, comes out, I believe, in January of next year, and it has the goddamn creepiest cover I've ever seen, and I'm so intrigued by that. I feel like I'm having like I'm repulsed, but like I want it. So I figured I should pick up the first book before the second book comes out and see if it's something that I'm even remotely interested in picking up. And then finally, September, that summer into fall transition makes me think fairs, makes me think carnivals, so I figured it was a good time to finally pick up Caraval by Stephanie Garber. Yes, I am going to also try to read 2 Stephanie Garber books this year, both set in the same universe. Is that going to be confusing? Probably. This is the first book in the trilogy that Once Upon a Broken Heart was kind of a spin-off of. So we're going back in time a little bit and following a different set of main characters. I believe there are these things, they're not tarot cards, but they're like similar. Basically, they're like these beings that are trapped in these cards that get released onto the world. And one of them, I think, is Legend? I'm not sure. But they're sort of like encapsulations of different themes and whatnot. Jax from Once Upon a Broken Heart is one of them. I already know I like Stephanie Garber's writing. It's going to be interesting kind of going back in time and seeing maybe how far she's come as a writer, but I'm excited, and my friend Stephanie also gifted me this set late last year, I think for Christmas, so I meant to get to this one much earlier, way before the sequel to Once a Broken Heart came out, but it is what it is. And I think this will be a fast read. It sounds like a really fun, fast-paced adventure. It's YA, so I'm hoping it's not a little too dense. I'm also already familiar with this world a little bit, so I'm very excited to get to this one. And that wraps up my hopeful September TBR. It's a lot, it's ambitious, but a lot of these I feel like will be fast reads for me. Like, they're books that I've been wanting to read for a really long time. If all goes according to plan, I might be able to do this. We'll see. Let me know if you've read any of these books. Which ones do you think I should start with? I'd love to hear your thoughts, and thank you guys so much for watching. Please feel free to like, subscribe, comment down below if you're feeling it. Follow my socials down in the description box below as well, and as always, have a great day. Bye.